Hello. How is everybody today? Just one moment, gotta boot everything up. You guys will have to let me know how I am sounding. Why is it looking for a game to capture? You should know exactly what game you're supposed to be. Oh, there we go. Yee. But do you hear me loud enough? Because that's the question I need to know. I'm actually going to turn this down. Woo! It's 9 p.m. and I'm eating flavored rice. Nice. Play Mafia Definitive Edition, Suffering with blasting fireworks all night. Actually loud enough for once. Yee. Good, good. It's not even 4th of July yet. Well, it's pretty normal for people to be shooting off fireworks in the lead up to 4th of July and even after it. I think over here I was driving home last week. It was like a good hour and a half, 2 hour drive, and people were just popping off fireworks all the way on the way home. Is that last week or the week before? So, yeah, usually we have a problem where nobody can hear me. So that's good to know. Yeah, so, for those who don't know me, my name is Noah. I am, or as you probably do know me, I go by Osric online. I'm the lead developer of the single-player FPS game Viscerafest, and I'll be playing through the first chapter here today. There's a lot of stuff I want to go over and talk about. I'll try to avoid treading on ground I've already done in past streams and the like, because I have done something similar to this several times. I'm just doing this because we recently released the first chapter into early access. So I'll be going over some of the new stuff, hopefully get into some stuff I haven't really talked too much about before, but for some background. This game began development back in 2012. I was 12 years old at the time, because I was born in the year 2000. Let's see. Most of that time was spent kind of just learning the ropes of game development. All because I wanted to make something that, when it eventually did come out, I felt would be worth people's time. Around about 2019, my fellow developer, Elijah, or as you probably know him, Fireplan Games, he joined development. We met in 2016. We were collaborating on a project that eventually fell through called Nexum, which was going to be like a sort of hero arena shooter type game. I was doing the art for that. He was doing the netcode and the programming. And over the course of us working on that, he really came to want to work on a project with me. And we had actually, so originally Viscerafest was being developed on the Blender game engine. And, which, in case you don't know, is a terrible, terrible, terrible game engine. It's positively awful. And I didn't really realize that until I was several years deep into actually working with it. But basically, our original plan was we were going to wrap up development on that version of Viscerafest, and then we were going to make a Viscerafest 2. And toward the end of the development period on the Blender version of the game, we were actually doing some prototyping for Viscerafest 2. But eventually, I ran into some absolutely fatal issues with the Blender game engine that halted development in its tracks, because I kind of came to this realization. It's like, I can't ship this game. It's like a mess, just because of how terrible the engine is and the restrictions that were being placed on me. So I ended up calling him up and asking him, hey, how long do you think it would take us to port the game over into Unity? And he was like, oh, it'll take a month or two, which didn't. But that's mostly because what we actually ended up doing was less of a straight port and more of a building the game from the ground up all over again. Because we knew, especially with the tools that were being afforded to us, we could do so much better than what was in the Blender version. Round about 2017, 2018, I think, our composer Michael Markey joined the project. A friend of mine had been doing the music up until that point, and originally it was going to be a much more atmospheric ambient soundtrack. But he ended up, due to his personal life with work and college, he didn't have the time to work with us anymore. So I ended up going shopping, composer shopping for a while, and eventually I stumbled across Markey, who originally was just going to be doing the music, but eventually he took over as the lead sound designer, which originally was me. There was Sarah Kanaapin. She's done the cutscene art for the very first cutscene, but eventually, due to things going on in her personal life with her needing to get a job and everything, she had to step down, and then her sister originally was going to take her place, but she had to step down due to health issues, and in I want to say 2020, the wife of one of our main voice actors, Mariki Duma, she ended up taking over as the lead cutscene artist, and she did this art here for the main menu as well. And then there's all of our voice actors, which are Jenna Polson, who is the lead character, Carolyn. I think she came around 2017, 2018. I went through probably a good 800 voice actors, and she was the one I settled on because she was the one who I felt fit the character the best. That was a nightmare of of a search period, because I probably went a good 4 to 5 days doing nothing but looking through voice actors, which was pain. But Gianni was just a friend of Markey's. He was working at the time with Markey on a project called Diabolical, which has released and it's kind of flopped. But he was doing some announcement work on that game, and Markey brought him on to do some voice work for one of our main antagonists. And then there's one. Markey does a lot of voice work on the game. Naturally, part of that's just because he voices a lot of the enemies as he does a lot of the sound effects and the like. But he also voices one of the main antagonists, that being Dr. Mortis. And then Mega Pie Man. He was just a regular Discord user who was following us for a while, and he reached out to me because he did voice work on the side, and he was like, "Hey, if you need a voice actor, I'm happy to help." And I was like, "Hey, I need a voice actor." So, but yeah. Before we jump in, I want to. I have pulled up here the first cutscene, because there's actually a lot of stuff within that cutscene that I kind of want to talk about that I haven't really been able to properly address in one of these streams, purely because obviously I can't pause the cutscene and point out things whilst I'm playing the game. I can only really skip the cutscene. So I actually have pulled up on a separate window the video of the cutscene, and I want to kind of go through it and point out some things that people may not know or have noticed. So yeah, so hold on, before we do that, I want to quick look at the comments and the like. This voice acting. Yes, my name is Noah. Let's see. Alright, so yeah, we're gonna pull up the cutscene in a bit here. First, let me get rid of that. A couple fun things I'll point out here. Yeah, we've been doing pretty well. Our publisher just got back to us, I think it was either the 1st or the 30th. And I think we've sold in total about 3,860 copies, something around that range. So yeah. They said they were pretty happy with how it's doing so far. So, actually, I'll just do that because I already have a file called Aussie or Aussie. It's yee. Nice to see you too. So quick fact here. So I'm sure plenty of people already have noticed this if you've played through the game several times. But every time you bring up the difficulty screen here, these names here on the left, they change. There's about 20 variants of them. So we have like hurt is a stranger, pain is acquaintance, suffering is a friend, agony is my lover, and death is my soulmate. Let's see what other ones we can get. Well, that one we just got. Let's see. Yeah, just friends. Da, da, da. So yeah, so there's lots of different variants. But if you are wondering, like, because I'm sure some people might get confused by that because they don't know what all the difficulties mean. On the right here, obviously, we have a little tab that sort of gives you a better description of what the difficulties actually are. And then when you click on a difficulty, it has a more in-depth description of what the difficulty actually does. Yeah, welcome everybody who's just joining. So yeah. Like I said, I'm going to skip this and then gonna hold on.
Let's get this.
Alright, so like I said, I'm going to pull up a video here quick so I can talk about that first cutscene. Just gonna pause that. Hold on. Just gotta swap everything around. It doesn't seem to want to be using my hotkeys. That's pretty awesome. So I'll just have to do it manually. There we go. How hard was it to implement the difficulty? So it's a pain, I think, more from a saving standpoint, because everything is a pain from a saving standpoint. Basically what we do is we have 5 categories, and those categories exist both within the game world and in the back end. The things that change between difficulties are enemy quantity and placement, enemy aggression, speed, damage output, and something else. On the easiest difficulty, I know we add extra ammo pickups. I can actually go. Yeah. I was able to see. Can you beat the game of the hardest? Napster said it's like ultra hard kind of a troll difficulty. I'm not going to be playing on that today. I'm sure I can beat it. But like, especially in the most recent difficulty, we actually increased the level of that difficulty because basically people were saying it was harder, but it wasn't that much harder than the 4th difficulty, so we kind of pushed it up a little bit. But yeah. Yeah, so there's a ton of stuff that changes between difficulties, and the reasoning for that is because typically just changing one of the things I mentioned isn't really enough to kind of push the difficulty to where we want it to be. Because if you just change, the quantity of enemies, there's only so far that will actually take things, or that you can take things with that change. Especially because we don't want to do a pistol start scrub. I couldn't figure out how to save the position of the enemies. Oh yeah, no, it's a nightmare. Saving no matter what is probably like the single biggest pain in the butt when working on the game, and it is the thing that has consistently broken the most during development. Yeah, so let's go through here quick. You guys have to let me know if the cutscene's too quiet.
Let's start from the top. Name's Caroline, 27 years old, arms enthusiast, full-time mercenary, and girlfriend to a wonderful man named Athens Fetter. Been hoping to propose for a while now, but unfortunately work's been a bit slow, meaning rings aren't exactly in my price range. Thankfully, some warlock twat named Chromeune has acquired a rather hefty bounty on his head, and killing him was in the job description. Apparently, he's good chums with a bunch of gits who run some kind of illegal science gate called the USC, and word is he was last seen heading toward a base they just recently cobbled together above the Earth. So the plan's simple. Break in, kill the target, collect my pay, and get home in 3 days, just in time for date night. Now, Let's get this bloodbath started.
Yeah, so I'll go through that again and point out a few things. Does the harder difficulties change enemy positions, integration, and that sort of thing? So yeah, so difficulties change enemy placement and positioning. On the harder difficulties, there are typically more enemies. Their enemies are more aggressive, so they attack more frequently. Enemies are faster, and they do more damage, and their projectiles are faster. Let's see. So the reason why we changed enemy quantity is mostly tied into the resource management side of the game. On the easier difficulties, so we actually balance the game for the 4th difficulty, and then we scale it down. So that way, because basically the idea is that if everything is fair on the 4th difficulty, then we know everything going back. It's much easier to balance those earlier difficulties. So when sorry, I'm just thinking. So for the 4th difficulty, we balance it so you have like just enough ammo to scrape by. So you really have to be conscious of like your resources and stuff like that. And then on the easier difficulties, we scaled that back, the quantity of enemies, so that it's easier to manage your resources. And there's also sorry, I'm just thinking. There's since there's less enemies, there's less stuff shooting at you, and it's less overwhelming. Enemies are faster and more aggressive to push players to react quicker, to be more on their feet, and same thing with like projectile speeds and stuff like that. With the enemy damage, the reason why we changed that specifically is because the idea is that we have a list of things that we want the player to do, and one of those things is that we want players to be moving. So the idea is that by changing the damage, effectively what we're doing is we're saying, hey, we're not necessarily going to make it harder purely by changing the damage to do the things we're already asking you to do. We're just going to punish you more if you fail to do those things, so that there's a harsher consequence for you failing to do what we want you to. I'm more curious about the guy in the... Or is that her ship? That's her ship in the first room. What weapons? So we'll get to that quick. There's also another question I want to address, but I will get to that as soon as I'm done talking about this first cutscene, so we can actually move on. So first things first is this shot. A couple of things of note. So the idea is basically this would be Carolyn actually traveling to her ship. So Carolyn and Athens do not live on Earth. They live on a world known as Tepthit, which is this planet in the background here. It's sort of a lush rainforest world. Its primary inhabitants are a race of very large arachnids known as the Archilians. The planet has 2 moons, which you will actually also see later in this cutscene. And those moons' names are Erone and Ledora. The Archilians are sort of like a very I would like a very naturally conscious race, I would say, if I can put it that way. And so a lot of their structures and their cities and stuff tend to be more like airborne, because they don't want the industrialization to kind of affect the world around them. So as you see here, as she's like going by on this train,
Name's Caroline.
you can see some of the cities going by as she's the tram is driving past them. Let's see. So this is a shot a lot of people miss. So basically, because a lot of people have asked me why Carolyn has doesn't have like the scar in this shot, and it's because she has a holographic mask. She has a holographic mask she wears, and you can see there's like a little earpiece here, and in the shots that show her, is it left or right? Yeah. So in the shots where you can see her left ear, you can see she has a little earpiece in there. But yeah, so that is why like her eye is blue in these shots, and she has like the half face like that. It's because she's wearing the mask. Let's see. So the guns in the shot, because I saw somebody just ask that. The guns in this shot, So basically, the idea is Carolyn's a bit of a gun nut, and she even mentions that in this cutscene. But basically, I asked our artist Sarah Knappin to basically just draw a bunch of guns, a bunch of sci-fi stuff, and then she drew a bunch of very normal-looking guns. You can actually see there's a bunch of ammo boxes back here, which is cute that she added. But the idea is that basically, like Carolyn has in Carolyn's home, she had in sort of like the basement area. She has like a little gun shack, and I imagine that that's something her and Athens do to pass the time together, is to shoot off guns and stuff. Though Athens isn't necessarily into that, but he more so does it to spend time with her. So this shot here is fun. So this shot actually contains these two enemies are scrapped designs of enemies that were going to appear in the game. There's an enemy called the Troopers in the game currently. They're like this green enemy that has a big green eye. And that's what this is right here. This was a scrap design for the Troopers. And then this right here, I think he was sort of like an Archvile type enemy. There's actually, I don't have it on me right now, but there is actually like a story for what's going on here in this shot. Like this is like another like bounty Carolyn took on. I can't remember the specifics of it. But yeah, and then obviously there's the fun thing with Carolyn having all her tongues, because for those of you who don't know, Carolyn isn't human, and that will be addressed more in Chapter 2, but definitely toward the end of Chapter 3. So this is another shot on Tepthit. Like I said, it's sort of like a lush rainforest-ish world, except for like the poles, which are like these frozen tundra-esque deserts. But this is sort of like on the ground around the planet, on like a beach setting. Let's see. Carolyn can add to her biomass. The tongues is just like simply a way that that manifests in that image, but she can do a lot more than that. As of this game, she doesn't quite know to what extent. But yeah, so like that's mostly just her like adding to her biomass. Normally, she just has one tongue. How does Athens finish? So this is actually, so it's a little cut off there, but you can actually see, like I said, this is more so like in a Carolyn's imagination, but this is on Tepthit, and you can kind of see. I think there's I have in the actual like images you can see it better, but there's like another one, but like this is the main moon, and then there's like a smaller moon. I can't remember which one is which, because I can't remember whether it's Ardenne or Arane and Ladora. I can't remember. I think Ladora is the bigger one. Here is, so this is like a fun little, so this is like, sort of like the monetary symbol in the game. Let's see. I can't remember what, I think they're just called credits, but I could be wrong. Will her biomass abilities be added at some point? Not in this game. It does kind of manifest as it is already, because that's kind of like the excuse for why like eating hearts heals her. The idea is like she can basically like eating anything will like she can like use that to add to her biomass, or she can shed that by like basically bleeding out of her pores, which obviously representing some of this stuff is difficult in game. But in this game, there's not going to be a great deal of extension to like what her abilities are and how that manifests in her morphing her biomass. Big cheese in the egg. So this shot here, like I mentioned earlier, you can see the earpiece. This is actually, so there's kind of like 3 layers to Carolyn's armor. So there's like this main sort of like latex thing here. There's like a gray like bodysuit that goes over this, and then there's like the white armor atop that. This is in Carolyn's basement again, so like where the guns were and stuff like that. What you said as of this game. Future plans for Viscerafest? Yeah, like, I don't know that it would be the very next thing we do, because we talked about wanting to do something smaller if we have the chance to do another project. But, Viscerafest's story is kind of broken up in a way where there's sort of two main plot elements, or like stories, I guess you could say. They're both broken up into like separate chunks. This one being the first, and then if we were to do a sequel, that would be the second. But like they're sort of both self-contained stories that sort of work off of each other. As elements that are introduced in this story would then be like expanded on and more explored in the second one. But whether or not we're ever actually going to do that, I don't know. A lot of the way we're trying to structure this game is that it is self-contained enough that you don't need another game. But we could. But like, there is very much, I would say, like an end to the Viscerafest story. I have Smudge locked out of here so he doesn't cause chaos, because that is exactly what he would do. Here's Chromium. A lot of people missed, or in testing, I should say, a lot of people were missing what was going on with the Chromium stuff. And we actually added to the last cutscene because of that. We sort of like repeat a dialogue phrase because a lot of people didn't realize the character in that cutscene was Chromium. So we kind of felt the need to like basically like establish further that's who that was. Would you like a tester coder for 3D? Let's see. So this is a shot of like obviously the United Scientific Conglomerate. Fun fact here. So this enemy type right here is the Grenadiers. But you probably noticed they have a bit of a different design in this, and that's because originally they weren't Grenadiers. They spat acid, and when we were working on it, we were kind of like, this doesn't feel right, this doesn't work. They didn't feel like meaningful additions to the enemy roster, and as a result, we originally were planning later on to have a Grenadier enemy type, but we basically just repurposed this enemy into the Grenadiers. And the Grenadiers, they were planned to be female, so we took like this original male design and we like basically changed it so that they were females. And I think, yeah, this is also using an older design of the Blitzers, as around that time. Well, later on, we changed it. So the original idea for the Blitzers is that they're sort of like these crab-esque crustacean creatures, and we didn't feel that was being conveyed well enough through their sprites. So so we changed them up a bit so that it was a bit clearer. They were sort of like a crustacean-esque creature. Also, these aren't janitors. A lot of people say that a lot. They're not janitors. They are scientists. They just, when they're on the ship and they're doing cleanup work, that's just because they're basically wrapping up. Like, by the time you get to the first space station, they're basically wrapping up what they're doing there. They're kind of just like, they're on cleanup. They're just finishing up and moving on. This is the space station you go through in Chapter 1. It's called the Grab Bag Station. And the reason it's called that, other than being a Duke Nukem reference, is because it was very hastily tossed together from a variety of different ship parts and stuff like that. And you can actually see, so in the first level of Chapter 1, like you can see like different chunks of, well, in all the levels, but especially like the main example I like to use is in C1L1. You can see like there's parts of like what used to be like a prison frigate there. So yeah. Moving on, some cute pictures here. This shot, I love this shot. So, other than it just being a really nice looking shot that Sarah did, and this cute little suit that Athens is wearing, basically I kind of just I gave her free reign as to like what aliens would be in the background, because I don't think I mentioned this, but Tepthit, the world they live on, is it is like a tourist world basically, because of its like climate and vegetation, and especially because of the floating cities. And you can even see again some of those in the background here. But like all these aliens, and if I had like a separate shot, I would show. There's some really ugly ones back here, but like my favorite, and like I pointed this out as soon as she drew this. My favorite is this guy right here, just because he looks so sad and depressed, and he kind of looks like Cthulhu, so I just dubbed him Sad Thulu. But like that was like one of the first things I noticed when she sent me like the final version of this shot. I was just like, I love Sad Thulu in the corner over here. So yeah, so that's kind of actually. So this shot got repurposed, but this was actually like, well, not this shot. This level got reworked, but in the intro level, this was like sort of the first thing you would see when you jumped in. It's like basically like this is all the textures and stuff that were being used at that time. Again, that level got reworked, so it's not quite the same anymore. But yeah, so with that said, I think we should probably hop into the game. But before I do that, I do want to scroll back up and address a question that I saw earlier by Mad Dragon. So he asked, "Hey Noah, where did you get the combat loop idea from? Is it Doom Eternal kind of combat loop with a little fast run gun idea, or did you have another idea for it?" So basically, the combat loop was kind of something that manifested as a combination of trying to make a game that encouraged the playstyle I generally go for, and also capitalized on the ideas and concepts that I thought made retro shooters so compelling. Basically, when we were doing like early testing and stuff, the melee has always been a very powerful option, and I wanted it to be because of the heart mechanic, which did come around. That came around, the heart mechanic for getting health and stuff. That came around about 2015, I think. Basically, I was inspired around that time by like some of what they were showing off for early Doom 2016 stuff, and I liked the ideas, and I wasn't going to add a whole execution system or anything, but I liked the idea of like you killing enemies being used as a way to encourage the player to push forward into combat. And I wanted to implement that, but I didn't want you to only be able to jib enemies by using your guns, because I thought that, there would be situations where players would run low on ammo, and I didn't want to potentially risk players not being able to recuperate health because they didn't have a gun to shoot at the enemies. So the melee mechanic was added, but then once we added the melee mechanic, I was constantly using it in combat because it was so fun, and I found it like it worked really well for my playstyle, because I have a very aggressive, like in-your-face playstyle when I generally play retro shooters. So I was like constantly like getting close quarters with enemies and basically brawling with them. And I was like, well, I kind of have to factor this into how I place ammo and stuff now, because one of my favorite elements of retro shooters is sort of the dichotomy with the resource management and prioritizing enemy types and stuff like that. That was really something I wanted to double down on for Viscerafest. And with the implementation of the melee mechanic, it was like, well, you can kind of like avoid having to use weapons altogether if you just run up and brawl with everything. So I kind of had to factor that into the balancing. So it was like using it as a means to both force and encourage players to think about their actions during play, and also to push players to be more aggressive in combat. It was something that came about very naturally. Doom Eternal didn't have any influence on that. That was always something we were going to do. And I was actually very happy to see Doom Eternal take the direction that it did, because a lot of the stuff that they addressed in Doom Eternal were specifically critiques that I had of 2016, because there was a lot of ideas they introduced there that I thought they weren't fully taking advantage of. And so when Doom Eternal did eventually kind of, I would say, not take the ideas from Viscerafest, but do some similar things to what we were doing, it made me very happy. But yeah, so let's actually get into it. And I'm actually gonna maybe bump the volume down just a little bit more. Melee's really fun in these kind of games. I ask, what's with the light that light switch on her gun. I'm not sure what you mean. Like the little red tab in the back, or... I love Seth. So yeah. So this first room is effectively... I actually should probably turn on the tutorials. Let's start. Yeah. It's good. Yeah, so this first room is basically meant to be a means to inform the player about bunny hopping. It's what the reason why we start you in this big open room is generally just so you can get the hang of maneuvering through the space and getting a feel for what the bunny hopping is like. And yet a lot of people still blow through this section because it is kind of like an optional tutorial thing where it's like, hey, we're going to give you the room to experiment if you want with the movement, but you don't have to if you already know it. So yeah. This sequence up here is fun because it's sort of... I want to do more sequences like this where there's sort of like multiple routes through an area, but I really love like you can kind of... go this route, kill this guy, and a trap will trigger, or you can like go down here, another here, and you can like sneak up on these enemies and prevent this trap from ever being sprung. In cutscene. What's with the light switch on a gun? Yeah, in the cutscene, that's what it looks like. I'm not sure. So the red things on the gun are more like sort of triggers, sort of like a revolver. But yeah, generally speaking, I design everything more for the visual appeal of it than I do from like a design standpoint. I design things more from a visual appeal standpoint than I do like a practical standpoint. So with a lot of the guns and stuff, I usually don't have like too much thought put into how they actually work. But yeah, so like I said, we can use the pistol ammo here and sneak around.
I've got 2 guns. That should be enough for all of you.
Fun fact about the shredders, actually. Originally, they just used to be like a dual-wielding version of the pistols. Or the pistol here. Kind of like in Rise of the Triad, like you would pick up another pistol and then you could start dual-wielding them. I think we changed that just because I wanted to give them like more individualistic presence. But yeah, I actually want... What difficulty am I playing on? Okay, I am playing on the full difficulty. So yeah, so tutorial for melee. And a lot of people miss this, but you can hold down the right mouse button and do an uppercut, which does double the damage of the standard punch. Ooh. I think we made ladders faster in one of the updates. They used to be a lot slower. Yeah. Did that door play a sound? Am I crazy? Okay. I might have to look into that. Yeah, your ammo will run dry if you rely on your guns alone. So yeah, so this kind of goes into what I was talking about earlier with the resource management. Generally speaking, the way we balance this. So, whenever I do runs of levels, for starters, I can't save. Because saving doesn't work in Engine. It only works when the game is in standalone. But secondly, so basically I have to do every single time I test a level, I have to do it in one run. But secondly, when I'm balancing resources and stuff like that, I don't take secrets into account because I don't think it's fair of me to expect players to have to go run after secrets to be able to get by. Generally speaking, when I balance for the 4th difficulty, I balance it from the standpoint of you never going after secrets, and so I actually rarely ever do, and I kind of forget where they are sometimes. But we do balance things, so you do have to be pretty efficient on the 4th difficulty. That is the intent. You have to be efficient, and you have to be thoughtful of where and how you are using your ammunition. You can cheese the drones with melee only on Nightmare. Yeah, I mean, you can do that on every difficulty. Like, the drones are not an enemy, that's meant to be used in isolation. And they will be used in ways where they're harder to get to going forward. But basically, the idea of the drones is they're more of a support unit that can really screw you over if you're not paying attention to them. So when we do use them, you have to be like constantly conscious of where they are and what they're doing. Press Q. Dang it. I need to turn up my mouse sensitivity. Hold on. Is that good? I think that's better. Yeah, got bubblers here you can play with. Ooh. Food. Got some spoons. That's not rotating. That should be rotating. I'll need to fix that. That Sprite is not doing a thing. This is also an excuse for me to test bugs and stuff. Yeah, so in the background, whilst Chapter 1 is going on, there's sort of a minor side plot thing going on with Chromeo's side of things. Where basically, he is in a facility that you will get to see in Chapter 3 in a dimension known as Ronoxether, I think? Or it's on a world called Ronoxether, I should say. That's located in another dimension. But basically, they're sort of in their little, they're in their own established facility, and whilst you're basically wrecking things over here, they're getting ganged up on by the local species and whatnot. And then by the end of it, the facility gets destroyed, and Chromium gets taken somewhere, which we'll get to see later. Reminds me of Wolfenstein, where you would eat food on plates and dog food for health. That was more so inspired by like Duke Nukem and that like. There's a secret under the elevator here, which is pretty fun. There's a bunch of secrets that we actually added after the demo came out. And we added them because I kind of felt when I was working on these levels, sometimes putting Easter eggs and stuff in them wasn't on the forefront of my mind because I was more so conscious. I was more so conscious of just like the level layouts themselves, and as a result, a lot of the time I didn't have time to add some of these stuff. But yeah, there's like a little barnacle here from Half-Life, and he's got a crowbar in his mouth. Woo! So if you guys are wondering why there's not like a line there or something like that, that is why. It's because it was added very late. I hope in Chapter 3, the second or final level. What about Chapter 3? Show the crowbar. I just showed the crowbar. So yeah, so here we have the hub, which is not fully functioning yet. But basically, over here we have what's going to be the shop. Here you'll be able to spend the scullies and stuff that you collect in various levels. And that'll be coming probably closer to around launch than anything. I think we want to implement some of it in an update, but we're not really sure when or if that will be coming. Because this is gonna add like a ton of complicated crap to the game. Because if I go over here and I hop in the portal here, you can replay levels, and basically what's gonna happen is you'll be able to purchase modifiers and stuff that you'll be able to use when playing through the game again. And these modifiers will be anything from like basic cheats, and so like things like invincibility, infinite ammo, stuff like that, to you being able to buy things like different game modes, effectively. So, hi, Mariki, or Marika. I can never pronounce her name right. But basically, the idea is that you'll be able to buy cheats, different game modes, and stuff like that that you can play through the game with. Over here we have the library. So as you finish chapters in the game, basically you'll be able to unlock bits of lore and stuff that you can read through here. And then over here we have what's going to be the bestiary. So as you finish chapters again, you can read up on new enemies. You can view their stats. You can basically learn more about their behaviors and the like, and some lore behind them. So there's that. And then obviously here we have the chapter select bit. First chapter is Cyber Slaughter, second one is Oriental Overkill, and the last one is Blasphemous Butchery. So we'll just jump into the portal here. We get a fight the size of Graham. Oh, that definitely won't be happening. There definitely won't. I've talked about this before, but I really, really, really hate enemy spam in games. I hate it. I find it obnoxious and not fun, and it's a slog. And so the way I've structured Viscerafest is much in a similar way to the way Quake is structured, where basically each individual enemy is a massive threat on their own, and there's just lesser quantities of them. Purely because I like it when there's less enemies in the fight that are in each individually more dangerous, because it forces you to prioritize enemy types more instead of just mindlessly blazing through them. Yeah, so like different game modes. So like one idea we had was something like Gun Game from like the COD series, which is, or I think Golden Knight does it too. But basically, like you would start out with a pistol, and then like you would get like the shotgun, and then you would get the pun cannon, and then you get the quad shotgun, and you would have to like use those guns to get kills, and eventually you would kind of like rack up. But yeah, so you basically like cycle through unlocking bits of the arsenal as you play through. So that's like one example that later we will have some arena mode. Does Borderlands do that? I don't know. All I know is that it's a crappy looter shooter with terrible comedy. So you know. Dang it. Let me get up there. This was actually, so the prior load of this, the Prelude, that was like one of the last levels that was made for Chapter 1. This was the very first level that I had ever made, period. And this is like a quarter the size it was supposed to be, because when I was working in the Blender game engine, I was incredibly limited with the amount of enemies I could put in a level. And originally I had wanted it to be much, much larger. But I couldn't have more than like 18 to 20 enemies in a map on a time, even if I like spawned them after the fact without the performance tanking. So I basically like downsized this level by a lot, which is a good thing, because the rest of the level was mostly just really long, massive, terrible hallways. But a lot of this level has gotten refined from its original state. A lot of the levels in Chapter 1 have been like sort of given facelifts and improved vastly over the course of time. And I'm actually pretty happy with this level as far as like a first level I had ever made goes. It has a pretty nice layout for like a starting map, and it's also it's got a nice bite size runtime to it. Any plans for Eldritch skeleton enemies? There's definitely going to be some more Eldritch-esque enemies later on. I don't know about skeletal enemies. Oh, spam. Okay, I see. Also, another thing. So one bug we were running into during the demos, or not bug, but one like really annoying issue we were running into during the demos period is basically if you would like dash and punch, a lot of the times enemies would just get pushed to the side of you rather than you actually being able to hit them. And so we made a fix for this, but this fix has kind of resulted in an unintended side effect that makes melee kind of broken. So if you dash and you do a punch, it basically leaves a trail of damage behind you. And so if there's like a crowd of enemies, you can basically wipe out all of them by just dashing through them. Which is really fun, and we actually there's a few fights where we kind of take advantage of the fact that you can do that. I feel like relative brevity. Yeah, so the levels do get longer as you go. Chapter 2, like, I think the first level is about as long as C105 is here. But yeah. But yeah, generally speaking, like, this first level is going to be the shortest of the bunch. Which is both intentional and not intentional. It's not intentional from the standpoint that a lot of these levels, like I said, were under various constraints that were a result of the prior engine that we were working with. They did actually, some of them got expanded quite a bit from their original versions, but they're still pretty short. Like C103, there was like an entire section that was added that wasn't originally there in that level. But generally speaking, these levels are meant to be pretty brief, and I think that's a good thing, because I know a lot of people really struggle with this game, and they find it very, very difficult. And that brevity, I think, works to the benefit of this early chapter, as it means that it doesn't feel like you have to, like, the levels are brief enough that it doesn't feel like that straining to try and, like, push yourself through the tougher situations to get to the end. So let's see. Yeah, like the drone, chicken fight. Yeah. Let's feature now. Are you planning on making more forced combat? Running the game right now is mostly dashing through and ignoring fights. I mean, ultimately, whether or not you choose to ignore fights is something that you can, we give you the freedom to choose. We give you the freedom to choose whether or not you want to do that. That's mostly something more speedrunners will be doing anyways. Most players, they'll end up going through the combat encounters and dealing with them unless they feel that absolutely necessary to just run by. Part of the danger is that obviously you run the risk of like leading enemies through more of the map and potentially like ganging them up in areas and basically creating bottlenecks for yourself if you do that. But there are going to be a few sections where we do kind of like push you into a combat encounter and not necessarily lock you in. There will be some where we definitely do, but there will be combat encounters where it's sort of difficult to break out of them. Like a good example of kind of one of those is in C1L4 we have a bit where there's like an elevator at the far end of the room which is necessary for where you have to go to progress, and like there's a lift that takes you down into that room. And you have to call that elevator down, so you can't just blow through that section. You have to go through that fight and or evade enemies long enough to wait for that elevator to come down. But the levels are on the shorter end, at least in the beginning. Speedrunning the game. Are you planning on... Oh, okay, I see, yeah. So for speedrunning the game. So there are definitely going to be sections that I would say aren't speedrunner friendly, because I don't design the game first and foremost for speedrunners. I design them for people like me. Because I don't like speedrunning. I don't do it personally because I don't find it enjoyable. I just like to play through the game and the combat encounters and stuff like that. So there will be some areas where we make concessions for speedrunners, similar to like the boss where you can shoot the screen and just like cut straight to the boss fight. But I wouldn't say like we're designing the game for speedrunners first and foremost. Should we expect more types in the future, like Lovecraftian creatures similar to Caroline? Enemy types. There's in total about 24 enemy types, I think. And we've only introduced 8 so far. We're working on another 6 for Chapter 2, and then we're also working on a mini-boss that's going to basically become a regular enemy type as well for Chapter 2. And then there's just like another like, what is it? Like 8 to 10 enemies that are planned for Chapter 3. So there's a lot. There's a lot of enemy types. I'm asking because I like to. Yeah, no, there definitely will be sort of sections where you're more so forced into encounters. But yeah. Whoa. Yeah, I am going to be playing sloppier just because I'm trying to talk and think words at the same time as play, which is generally not conducive. I can usually get through all of these levels without dying. That's probably not going to happen, at least not with the later levels. Way to speedrun. Yeah, well, like, generally speaking, well, the way I design levels is in such a way where there's not really too many places where where it's like advantageous to get out of the map and skip, and even so, it's very difficult to do. When I say not speedrunner friendly, I mean sections where you're kind of forced to engage with what the game is doing, whether that be story or combat. You can't just like run through it, which is generally speaking what a lot of speedrunners like to do. We need some enemies. There's the Hellbirds, which are coming in Chapter 2. Those are they kind of have some similar. They have a similar mechanic to the Marauder-ish. There's actually, I want to say at least there's at least 3 enemy types now that have a sort of invincibility mechanic like that. It's a little different for one of them because there's like an enemy. There's an enemy that's like specifically inspired by the phantasms from Blood. So there's that guy. But yeah, so like there's the drones right now who you can't do damage to until like they open for attack. And then in Chapter 2, we introduce a variant of the Thunderbirds, which are more aggressive, they're faster, and they have more health. That also you can't damage unless they go for an attack, so you have to like bait them to do a melee attack. Let's see. Where it's hard, like to do optimal play aren't the same thing. Yeah, the level where I got stuck in lockers. Yeah, so I actually did fix the locker bug. This weapon actually changed a lot during development. In the early period, the pun cannon was it's sort of like a grenade launcher-ish type weapon. Where like you would fire a projectile that would like bounce around the arena and had like fall off, so like it was affected by gravity and it would bounce around, but it didn't cause an explosion, so you had to get direct hits with it. That later changed so that it was more of like a rocket style weapon to like what it is now. But the difference there is it would like detonate the second it hit the ground. And it did do the thing where it was like if you hit an enemy directly, it will do more damage. But now it's got more of like a mine type mechanic where like when you shoot the ground, it'll like latch on and detonate like that. Ooh dear. Yeah. Are the Thunderbirds gonna be or the Hellbird? Yeah, Hellbird's gonna be faster than you. Just be hopping. They won't be, but they are all. They can do a pretty good job of keeping up with you. The Thunderbirds are very easy to outmaneuver. The Hellbirds are not. But also, that's also dependent on difficulty. Actually, I forgot this secret. This secret actually used to be Hell Guy and like a blood jacuzzi, or not Hell Guy, Doom Guy and like a blood jacuzzi, and it got swapped over to this just because like. Sprites-wise, that looked a little bit awkward, and I didn't care for it, so I felt like this was a bit more visually tasteful than that. I might, at least with like how we were handling it at the time, it looks more visually tasteful than what we were doing. I noticed you can open lockers from the inside at one point, but still not get out. But yeah. So like this issue has again been fixed. Let me see if I can trigger it. There we go. Yeah. So you can get out of lockers now. So that shouldn't be an issue anymore. I didn't want to use that. Oh well. Yeah, so, there was something else I wanted to say. It'll come to me. Hold on. Dang it. So this is actually something I'm kind of surprised I haven't seen more games do. Is like we have like the cracks and stuff modeled into the environment. And I don't know why more games don't do that. Like a lot of the times it's just like a flat texture against a wall, which like is a nice way to tip players off that it's there, but like I'm surprised in something like Dusk where it's like fully 3D. They didn't have like a 3D model cracked in the cloud. Because in my opinion it's like a much more visually like pleasing way to convey to the player, oh there's like a secret here or something like that. Because you can actually kind of see, ooh, there's something back there. Those lockers are pump up only 7. Ooh. Yeah. Those walkers. They're not really hard to spot if you're looking for them. There's a few that that are like intentionally very hard to find, just because like another thing I really like about those cracks is that like you can kind of adjust how much the player. You can kind of adjust just how visible they are, because I can make the cracks wider or thinner. And just by doing that alone, it's like I can make like a crack that's really difficult to spot because you have to be like a very, what's the word? It starts with a P. My brain is absolutely blanking right now. You have to be very perceptive to actually be able to spot them, which I like. It's like a nice way to kind of like increase the difficulty of finding those cracks, which again you don't get with using like a texture. Because it's like I can make a cracked secret that's really easy to find just because like the cracks are wide and you can see what's on the other side really easy. Or I can make it a pain if I want to. Keyboard ASMR. Sometimes Carolyn looks like super generic. Does she drink... Or energetic. Does she? She does not drink energy drinks. Shoot melee. Also shoot while melee charging. Yeah, we didn't want to like add things that would discourage the player from using melee. So being able to shoot whilst you perform melee attacks was something that was very important that we maintain. So this secret actually used to take you to a secret level. In the Blender version, that is. Not in the Unity version. It never did that in the Unity version. Because the plan was, there are going to be bonus levels in Viscerafest. Not secret levels, but bonus levels that you'll be able to unlock. And so like the secret level that was going to be here, that's instead going to be a bonus level now. But as for this right here, Venus was here. This is a reference to Nuclear Throne and by extension Gun Gods. there's a character called Young Venus who appears in those games. He's sort of like a triangular Illuminati character, and those games specifically, they were a big inspiration for like some of the art direction stuff. Well, I killed myself. Oh no! Hey, we landed it. Yeah, they were a big inspiration for like some of the art direction decisions that were made in Viscerafest. Who's Venus? Venus, Young Venus. He's a character from Nuclear Throne and Gun Gods. Damn. No, okay. Ooh, okay. So now, I'm trying to think. Let's see. Never underestimate the dash. Sorry, man. Yeah, the bonus levels. I will say another thing that's going to come with the bonus levels, because the bonus levels are something that's going to be implemented after launch. But one thing with the bonus levels is there's going to be a lot. They're going to be a lot more special than the secret levels were going to be. There's going to be a lot more fun stuff in them that wasn't going to be there originally. Because the secret levels were originally just more levels, as opposed to like having anything unique about them. They were basically just more levels in the same vein as like what you've already been playing through. Is it top down? Yeah. And Gun Gods is sort of like a Wolfenstein style game, spin-off game that the team at Vlambeer made. Woo. I need to move those Thunderbirds so they see you when, well, not move them, I should probably make them just so that they trigger when you pick up that shotgun. If you win, no Hunters. Patriots reference. I don't know what the Hunter or the Patriots is, to be honest. Is that like a football thing? Sounds like it could be vaguely sports related. I don't care for sports, so if that's what it is, you know why. Yeah, so I actually mentioned earlier that a section was added onto this level. This is the section that was added. Because originally, you would open this green key door and just go straight into here. And this was just like a cubed room. Have I ever played a FromSoft game? I've played Dark Souls 3. Which I really enjoyed. I've not finished it. I think I put like 15 hours into it or something like that. But like, that's one of those games where it's like it's really time. I have to be like in the mood to play it and have the time to play it. And those two things usually don't align. Because like I can't just like jump into Dark Souls and then jump out. I need to like dedicate time to actually like engage with it and like get into the mood and whatnot. Otherwise, I'm just gonna die 30 times. You can activate. Yeah, we know about that one. That is. It wasn't intentional, but damn, it was not intent. The heck? You used to be able to. Up, 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 up. Ah! I don't know, I'm sure the speedrunners can do it better than I can. But yeah, so you can hit the switch from these boxes that I'm very there we go that I'm very poorly showcasing. That's something we left in because it's like I don't generally like to do things that facilitate speedrunning too much, but just because, like, again, that's not how I enjoy games, and that I don't typically enjoy that from that standpoint. But that's one of those things where it's like, in doing that, if you're like a normal player, you are also missing out on like the scullies and stuff from this level, which if you want to unlock the bonus level and some other content and stuff like that, you would need. So it's like, yes, you can skip this section, but like once the full game comes out, if you're like a normal player running through it, there's not too much incentive to actively do that. Dang it. I gotta... Dang nabbit. I'm doing this like a scrub. I thought it was changed. Let's see the page. Tell me, are you a true connoisseur who has become a member of the Great and Large Great Club? I don't know what that means. Yeah, so another thing actually, so I'm just thinking my brain is dying. So another thing regarding in a lot of games that I like to call the buckle down space. That's not what I like to call it. I have a specific name for it that I can't remember off the top of my head. But basically the idea is that there's a point where sort of the gloves come off and the game says, okay, now is the time for you to like get to it. Like you have to like, now is where you have to like know the game in and out and commit. And a lot of people have told me they feel like this space or this level is where that engages, but for me, it's always been the level after the C1L4, where like we kind of where we kind of like buckle down and tell you like, hey, you have to commit now. Like this is where like basically what we've been kind of like loosely enforcing up until this point. That's the point where you have to like buckle down and actually play the game. And the reason I say that's the next level and not this one is because in this level, we kind of give you the freedom, a bit more freedom with tackling those situations. If you walk into that room, we do lock you in. But you can kind of like hang in that hallway if you want. You know, just putz around. Whereas in the C1L4, we like much more, we push you like into encounters right away. And generally speaking, that's something we kind of try to continue in C1L5, where it's difficult to back out of an encounter, or if you do, you're not exactly put in a better or more advantageous space. Like that elevator fight in C1L5, for example. Or not elevator, ladder fight. Right at the beginning. Yeah, I think it's because of the Grenadiers, and that's why people say a lot of this level is like kind of where the game first gets hard. Because the Grenadiers are a great enemy type from the standpoint of dang it, I shouldn't have done that. The Grenadiers are a great enemy type for not just denying you space, but also for pushing you around and messing with your movement. If you get hit by their grenades whilst you are mid-air, they can like kick you across a room, and it's very disorienting. So they're an enemy that really forces you to be conscious of where their attack is and what they're doing at that time, just because of how much they can screw up you positionally speaking. That, and you know, they do a lot of damage. That also. Damn it. I need to stop putzing around. There we go. It's probably where I'm going to start using my saves. It's right here. Just because I don't want to be replaying levels all day. Because they do get harder. And my brain is fried. So trying to speak and play the game at the same time, like I said, is not easy to do. Probably didn't have to waste that save, but whatever, it's fine. There's plenty of saves. Yeah, basically the way we have the enforcers balanced is generally to encourage you to use a shotgun on them, just because, like, you know, and obviously you can be more ammo efficient than that if you want. But generally speaking, their balance is sort of in a position to make them where, like with the grenadiers, like you have to two-shot them with a shotgun, right? Which often means that you will rely more so on the punk cannon, because the punk cannon is at a point where it doesn't feel quite like overkill to use on them. So we needed an enemy that was sort of like above what you can melee, but below what you can shotgun. If that makes sense. Because they were actually buffed. You used to be able to one-punch them. Woo! Yeah. But yeah, this level is where I would more so say we double down as far as like the difficulty and the like goes. Just because there's a lot more fights where they really push you into an encounter, and you can't just back out of it. Like this first room, obviously, is a good example. The room, not after this, but like I was mentioning earlier, the elevator room fight. That janitor at the start of the level. Why was he added? Just because I figured a lot of people might be low on health when they got to this level. It's the same reason why there's a scientist in the elevator of the final level of Chapter 1. It's because, like, generally speaking, we know that the player potentially has run the risk of being low on health. And we do want to give them the ability to heal, especially if we're about to throw them right into a big fight, even if it's just a little bit. Ooh. But yeah. But the other thing too is we still want players to have to live with their consequences, which is one of the reasons why live with their consequence. We still want players to have to live with the quality of their play. You know, the consequence of playing poorly is that, you know, you will be often running around with less health. And it's one of the ways we encourage players to get better. Because Yeah, generally speaking, and this actually ties into sort of a philosophy we have with the save system as well. One general sort of core idea that follows a lot of the creative decisions we make is that sorry, my brain is just dying. Why are you killing janitors? For health, obviously. What's wrong with Christmas? Yeah, basically the idea is that we want players to have to live with their consequences. When you make poor decisions, when you play sloppy, those are things we want you to have to live with. We want you, there are ways, there's freedom to engage with the game how you like within the systems we provide. But generally speaking, there's a list of things that we would like to encourage the player to do. We encourage the player to do that by providing punishments for failure to do that and providing benefits for doing those things. In the save system, basically the idea is that there has to be a punishment for failure. If there is no punishment for failing to do something, then there is then failure has no reason to exist, right? Like, if I can kill you but you don't lose any progress, there is no reason for me to kill you in the first place. There's no reason to have a death state. It's one of the reasons why we have the save system set up like we do, is because, we want there to be a punishment for failure. And the way we punish failure is by effectively forcing the player to lose progress. That's the way Viscerafest handles it and a lot of other games do. And if we had a traditional quick save system, then you could effectively save scum around every corner and effectively bypass any punishment for effectively failing. It doesn't make sense to allow the player to abuse a system to an extent that effectively allows them to just cheese their way through the entire game. We are not going to be. We'll be adding achievements to encourage players to kill all the scientists, but we will not be adding achievements for not killing them. Yes, and that's I like to. I think I've mentioned this in the prior stream, but the philosophy I have regarding power fantasy stuff is that it's like the difference between being an ant and killing a human and being a human and killing an ant, right? Like, me, as a person, if I go outside and I step on an ant, I won't feel powerful because I won't have overcome anything. There's nothing, like, that ant was nothing. Like, of course I killed it. Of course that ant could do nothing to me because it's an ant. It's pitiful. My power in contrast to the ant is so much greater that the ant had no chance. But, if I were an ant and I managed to kill a human, it would be like, wow, I feel powerful because I overcame something. I feel powerful because I've managed to do something that within my limits I really shouldn't have been able to accomplish. And that is an incredibly empowering feeling. And generally speaking, I have that, and generally speaking, that's something I kind of carry around with me from a perspective of game development. If there's nothing for the player to overcome in a game that is meant to be power fantasy, then that power fantasy has failed. Because the player won't feel powerful, they'll just feel like they're doing work. They'll just feel like, oh, I walk into the room and I shoot the enemy that has absolutely no chance against me, and there's nothing for me to overcome. There's nothing for me to, there is no fun to be had. A happy birthday, mister. Oh, dang it. Will you add some kind of rocket jumping? No. The reason why we don't have rocket jumping is because it's a nightmare from a level design perspective. It very easily allows players to potentially break the game in ways we do not intend. Which is the reason why we don't have it. Dang it. Mr. Shuffles. Yeah, it's very difficult to design around that kind of stuff. Because you have to be like, oh, well, now I have to find a way to block off this area so the player can't get here. Otherwise, they'll be able to, like, skip this entire section of the map. The more movement abilities you give the player, the more difficult it is to effectively design levels with progression blockers. Yeah, I did. I'm not going for 100% or anything. Like I said, I rarely ever go after secrets at all. Just because it's like, I don't balance the levels with secrets in mind. I'm only really going after secrets because I'm playing really, really sloppily. And having the extra ammo is a bit helpful because I'm not focusing on the game as much. So again, I'm not being as efficient as I should be. I should be playing this a lot better than I am. Because again, like, when I'm playing, I'm almost constantly like looking back over at chat and seeing what's going on. Yeah, I mean, like, it's fine if you don't enjoy the game on harder difficulties. Oh. It's fine if you don't enjoy the game on harder difficulties. Not everyone is going to. Watch me die in this section 30 times now. Or not, you know, that too. I have to... Yeah. But yeah, no, I generally balance the 4th difficulty for myself and my skill level. So it's a nice balance of it being challenging for me, whilst also being high enough on the difficulty scale that, you know, people who aren't as proficient as using the mechanics and stuff of the game can still have something lower to choose from. So, fun fact, when I was originally designing this room, the idea I had was that on all 6 of these pillars, on the 4th difficulty, there were going to be 6 grenadiers. Which was a terrible idea. I don't know why I ever thought that would actually work, because it was like impossible to move with 6 grenadiers all on those pedestals constantly raining grenades down on your head. Like, it was absolute incomprehensible chaos. And, yeah. Alright. We're almost to the levels where I have actually something interesting to talk about that I haven't before. classic side. And 6 Grenadiers on Nightmare. No, even on especially on Nightmare would be, like, that would genuinely, I would say, be bordering on impossible. They have it. Like, that, like, I can't overstate just, like, how, like, it would be hot luck getting through that section, if that. If you were able to at all. Because, like, that room is so claustrophobic. And, like, with that many grenades bouncing around, it would, it's not fun. Like, even on the easier difficulties, it felt awful. So I think once I beat this level, what we're going to do is I'm going to take a very short break. I'm going to use the bathroom quick. And then we are going to get to the new stuff, which I have way more to say about. If you can believe it. Because, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff. Because again, I'm trying not to repeat things I've already said in these levels. And I've talked about these levels pretty extensively in the past, whether it be in other streams or elsewhere. But I haven't gotten a chance to talk about the new stuff too much yet. Sounds good for difficult. Well, I still don't want, like, the 4th level in the game to be the hardest level in the game because of one specific area. I flubbed that. I don't know how I did that. I never have any issues going up these ladders. I don't know why I was... I'm not that concerned with fairness, but I still don't want, like, the 4th level to be the hardest in the entire game. Yeah, so I'm going to be right back. I'm going to use the bathroom quick, and we will go over C105, so hold on. Hello, I'm back. Just 1 second, gonna check on some stuff quick. Da-da-da. See how we doing. Alrighty. So, swap back to oh, hold on. There we go. So, Slip. So Slipgate Central, I forgot they were talking there. This level was probably in development for the longest period of time, because this level was being made whilst the demo was being worked on. And it was very difficult to focus working on this level, as during that period, we were so preoccupied with working on the demo stuff that it was very difficult to focus on this level. And this level has gone through a lot of revisions. There are entire chunks of this level that were just cut and deleted and completely redone several times, because we were it was very difficult to figure out what this level was going to be and what we were going to do with it during that period, as there were various ideas I had that either I realized I just wasn't going to be able to do, or that weren't as well thought out as they should have been, and so that again, like, stuff just got reworked a lot. As a matter of fact, in the final level of this chapter, there's a section that's sort of like a little tram station area, where you're like platforming around trains and stuff like that. That was originally going to be in this level. But it is kind of funny that this level went through as much as it did, because in my opinion, and I think a lot of other people's opinions, from a level design standpoint, this is probably the best in Chapter 1. Where there be controller support. It's coming at some point. We don't know. We haven't started working on it yet, because it's going to be one of those things that's going to require a lot of effort and work to get done, and we can't promise when we will be adding it. But yeah. Yeah. So a lot of what I love about this level is there are a lot of sections that, like, organically weave through each other several times. This one being one of the big ones. You started this area, and you come back here twice. So first, we go up here. I love this little section here.
Looks like I'm gonna have to cut your time short.
It's a really fun little small encounter. This is also where we start to introduce a bit more verticality into the levels. That was one complaint we got a lot during the demo. That was intentional, the fact that there wasn't much verticality up until this point. Originally the plan was like each chapter was going to have something kind of different about it. And with Chapter 1 we wanted it to feel a lot like Doomy levels. Like levels you would see in like classic Doom and the like. And then like in Chapter 2 it was going to be like, here's a lot of very build engine-esque levels. And then in Chapter 3 it was going to be like, hey, here's a lot of Quake-esque levels with tons of verticality and stuff like that. And we're still going to be doing that kind of stuff. It's just that we brought a little more verticality in, because so many people were kind of saying, I kind of just wish there was more verticality. So, Steam does allow you to replace, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, so we go through here, hit the green key, and then that'll loop us back around to the starting area we were just in, but also There's a little Shadow Warrior Easter egg in here. Yeah. So for those wondering, yeah, that is meant to be, like I said, a Shadow Warrior reference with the bathing chicks going la 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 la. I'm really looking forward to the game coming out. So how much time do you guys need until you're ready? It's gonna be a while. So basically, I'm currently working on Chapter 2, Level 3. As far as like a modeling side goes, none of the levels have been fully implemented into the game yet, and they're not playable. Right now, our main focus is on working on the enemy roster for Chapter 2. But yeah. But anyway, so we have the green key, go through here, and we get the quad shotgun for the first time. Dang at it. This is also, I think we introduced one in a secret in C104 actually, but this is kind of like the first level we officially started putting mega health pickups in. I like she showers with the toilet on. Go on. Generally speaking, I try to avoid having like any form of like. I tend to try and make sure there's not too much, I guess, mature content, which I'll put in quotes. Like, you know, there's not many like one-liners where Carolyn is cursing, and there's not really much nudity. I just try to avoid stuff like that. And if it is there, I more so try to. It's more so to accentuate certain elements. Think of it. I wasted that. Come on, boys. I thought you said toilet for a minute. So I didn't pronounce it as toilet. I just said toilet because I thought you said toilet. That opens a secret back up there. Yeah, like generally speaking, we try to avoid putting that stuff in, and that's less to do with like how the game is rated or anything like that, and more so just like a conscious decision made by me specifically. They can have it. Boop. Boop, boop. Yeah. Another thing about this level, which ties into the very next level, is that originally, about halfway through this level, in one of the cut sections, that portal sequence that happens about halfway through, at the very end of this level, that portal sequence was originally going to happen about halfway through. It wasn't going to be... It wasn't going to have as much flair as it does now. But basically that... You teleporting to that other space... That was just going to be like one really small section of this level. Eventually... So each chapter was originally only going to have 6 maps, 5 main maps and a boss level. And that got expanded to 7. When it got expanded to 7, I made the decision that it was like, okay, as I was working on C105, I was like, man, this level is really long. Let's break that up into the next map. And so originally it was going to be like that small section was just going to be the beginning of that map, and then you would go back to the space station toward the end of that map. Not toward the end. About like halfway through that map, you would have gone back to the space station. But then as I was working on it, I was like, or as we were working on C105 and as I was modeling C106, I was like, the game has been pretty relentless up until this point. Like, non-stop, like, things have been constantly ramping up, and we've been, like, throwing you into combat encounters and stuff. I feel like there needs to be a pace breaker, which is kind of why C1L6 is what it is. Alright. I'm gonna start, once I get the secret, I'm gonna start saving. Because again, I'm playing Slappy. Yeah, but going back to what I was saying before about this level constantly like looping you back through sections you've already been. So, this section has a bit where over this platforming section, you platform over this section twice. Because you have this section here, and then this loops back around to here, spit you out there. And then that loops you back around, spits you back over this bridge into this room. And then that all the way wraps back around to back here. It's just a very... It's really satisfying, I find personally, when levels do that kind of stuff. So let's see, I want to see if... is there more cons? There is not, okay. Alright. So... Here we go. So this room... Alright, so we gotta talk about the demo again. So back when the demo came out, everybody hated the Thunderbirds. I don't know why everybody hated the Thunderbirds, because they're kind of a joke. They're really easy to deal with, but a lot of people hated them. So because of that, I decided I was going to be a troll, and I was just going to start using them as much as possible. And this room... yeah. That room was one of the first big ones I did where I was like, ooh, I was gonna be a dick. Yeah, and up here, we were introduced to what is probably my favorite current enemy. Yeah. Yeah, probably my favorite current enemy in the game, which is the Stalker. And he's a big mean boy. But yeah. Originally, his only behavior in the Blender version was he would throw those homing orbs. But I decided I was like, I want to start spicing the enemies up more. I want to have more enemies that have more attacks, especially if they're going to be tankier. And so actually going forward in Viscerafest, you're going to start noticing most of the enemies are going to have a fair few different kinds of attacks. Like, there are going to be fewer and fewer enemies where they just have, like, one thing that they do. But he's one of the first ones we do that with. Here is the infinite ammo power-up, which this one's a one-off. You're not going to get this one very often. Or I should say, this is going to be the only time you get this power-up. But basically, we have sort of one-off power-ups that you're only going to see once. And we have power-ups that you're going to be seeing kind of scattered throughout the game. There's one in the final level of this chapter, which is the Ring of Invincibility. That one's going to be one that you'll see reoccurring throughout the game. And there's two more that are going to be reoccurring throughout. But that one right there, each chapter is going to have kind of like its own one-off power-up. And that was chapter 1's one-off power-up. Shoot switch here. Look at this. And she says this is getting serious. But yeah, that is meant to be a Serious Sam reference, basically. Yeah, so the Plague Rifle, it's kind of gotten repurposed over the years, because the original version of the Plague Rifle, what it would do is you would hit enemies a few times, and then it would start draining their health until they died, whereas now when you fire it, it leaves like a cloud that stun locks enemies and drains their HP. So it's more of a utility weapon now, because the idea is basically you use it on really tanky enemies and pin them down, and wail on them and or get them out of the picture long enough for you to be able to deal with whatever else is going on at the time. I don't think that ammo pickup was supposed to be there. I think that was supposed to be only on the easier difficulties. I could be wrong. I might have to look into that. Yeah, so we shoot this here and they can't move. We can just wail on them. If I can not suck at my quick switching. Woo, boy. Glad the game is not as decent. Okay, Sam. So yeah. And then I like this area kind of loosely wrapped back around, so I always love it in levels when you can kind of like, when you're going back through an area that you saw earlier but you couldn't get to. I mean, the weapon switching is pretty fast as is. We might make it faster, I don't know. We'll see. I just use iframes to deal with the homing projectiles. Yeah, you can do that. But like I said, I'm playing very sloppily right now. So, this sequence was a pain because it all had to be tied to the audio. So, like, the timing of the sequence was just... Yeah, it was a pain. Yeah, now we're on to the fun level. So yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, this level is sort of meant to be a nice pace breaker because the game has been pretty relentless up until this point. Carolyn doesn't know about her Lovecraftian nature, so I doubt he would either. We got the bubbles, which actually, this is going to be sort of a recurring thematic element throughout these sections where you come to... So basically what this is actually, I should back up and say. So this is what is called the Great Divide. And this is a reality that exists between other realities. Basically, there are various realms in the Viscerafest universe. And between these realms, there is the Great Divide. And the Great Divide effectively creates these bridge spaces to connect the two. So basically, you have slip gates and arc gates. Arc gates act as bridges between these realms. And what we just did is we activated an arc gate, which ruptured, effectively taking a good chunk of the station with it. But basically, what the Great Divide does is it creates a bridge between two arc gates by taking various bits of the geometry from each space and creating a bridge to connect the two. The thing is, though, this arc gate didn't have an end destination.
Never mind.
So it just spits us out into the primary, to what effectively makes up the primary architecture of the Great Divide. And all these blue bubbles and stuff, they are not just a random visual element. They're actually tied to what the Great Divide itself is, which will be revealed in Chapter 2. But yeah, this was a nice place to have a bit of a pace breaker, do some more platforming stuff, which we'll be doing more of in Chapter 2. Oh, dang it. I overshot that one. I was doing so well. Woo! I didn't want to dash there. Yeah. And then, so this was actually, I wanted to use this level as an opportunity to introduce some mechanics that we're going to be using more of later on. There's going to be a lot more complicated puzzles with the sacrifices and stuff, which is this little lad right here. He's adorable. I love him. Basically, in Chapter 3 specifically is when we're going to really kind of start hammering down on using the sacrifice mechanics more. But it felt really weird to introduce this mechanic as late as Chapter 3. So I wanted to use this level as an opportunity to introduce the sacrificing mechanics. And I love this bit here. Just the view. It's nice. It's very pretty. And we got a little Quake reference down here. With MIM. Non-copyright infringing MIM. And this year, some of this geometry is meant to also be very reminiscent of Quake. In Quake, you'll have like these pedestals you'll like bump up against, which will sink into the ground. So I wanted to do something visually similar to that. My image mails. I had like an idea for what it would actually mean, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. But yeah, this level took way longer than it was supposed to make, and it actually ended up delaying the entirety of the early access period by a good few weeks, actually. Because this level was supposed to only take, like, I don't know, I think it was like 15 to 20 days, and it ended up taking the entirety of a month and maybe like an extra week to work on. So I didn't have as much time going into working on the final level as I wanted to, and I actually had to cut out some ideas I had from this level, because in this next bit, there was going to be a bit of a labyrinth you would go through. And you would sort of like unlock and unveil more chunks of the labyrinth as you progressed. But I had to greatly cut that down because I just didn't have the time. It was like this was already pushing the boundaries of the time I wanted it to. And then we get this cutscene. So, this
What the hell was all that?
was not originally going to be in the game. As a matter of fact, there's a bit of a subplot that's introduced via the presence of the entirety of this level that wasn't originally going to be in the game. The reason why narratively this stuff exists in the current state that it does is purely because people were asking me so much who Carolyn was, what was going on with Carolyn, what is she, and I felt because of just how much people were asking me about that stuff, it kind of needed to be addressed. Because originally there wasn't going to be like any answers to who Carolyn was, what her role in the universe was, and all that stuff. That wasn't going to be addressed until the next game, if we even got the chance to do another game. And as a result, it kind of got worked into this game, and there are various elements. The Watchers, which are introduced in this section right here, they play a much more narrative-heavy role going forward, which wasn't originally the case. They weren't even going to be in this game, the Watchers. They were something that happened all as a result of the fact that people were demanding to see what was going on with Carolyn. And that stuff's going to get elaborated on going forward much further than it already has. But for those, I've seen a few people who were confused by that sequence. So I will elaborate a little bit. That was a flashback. That was not something that was happening in the moment. That was a flashback. That was Carolyn going unconscious and seeing that. So there's that. I'm not going to say whether or not that was Carolyn, or exactly what was going on there, because that's something that, again, you're going to get to see a bit more of going into Chapter 2 and 3. But yeah. Seems like it's for the better it would have felt superficial in the potential sequel. Yeah, I can kind of see that. I should say who and what Carolyn is would have still been alluded to in this game because it's necessary for the ending. But it wouldn't have been elaborated on like it is being elaborated on now. But then we have the Watchers. So if you were ever confused by this, which is intentional, you were supposed to be confused by this, basically the idea is that they move much slower when they are out of your line of sight. So if you break line of sight with them, they move really fast. So all you have to do to avoid them is just keep looking at them. Whoa, hello. Speaking of C2, how many levels is it going to have? Same as Chapter 1, but the levels are going to be longer. Like, each of the levels is about on par with C1L7 and C1L5. And then there's this section up here, which we're going to get to in a second. So this, I mentioned before that there was going to be a teleporting sequence in C1L5 that got pushed to this level, and then that got expanded into this entire level. This sequence right here, I'm about to go through the teleporter to see, this was heavily revised, but basically what you're going to see here is what this sequence was originally. You were talking with a different character, but yeah, this or I shouldn't say you were talking with. A character was just talking to you. Carolyn didn't really have a chance to respond. But yeah, this sequence up here is basically what this entirety of this teleport sequence was going to be. Yeah, I can safely say it wouldn't have felt like a retcon because, like I said, it would still have been alluded to throughout the course of this game. And on top of that, there are other elements that directly tie into the reveal of who she is, specifically another character who was just talking to us. In fact, and that was that was Mega Pie Man who was doing dialogue for that. By the way. That character was in this game, and he is directly tied into the reveal of who Carolyn is. So I can safely say it wouldn't have felt like a retcon, because like there still would have been like seeds to let you know like who she was. It's just like now it's much more directly addressed in the story. How did we find the voice actor for Carolyn? I went through about 800 different people. Different voice actors on sites that sort of like act as like fronts for voice actors and stuff, trying to find who she was, trying to find somebody, and Jana Polson is who we settled on. Also, I just want to say I'm really disappointed that nobody who's made a YouTube video on Viscerafest yet has made an Evanescence joke. Nobody has done the wake me up insides. How did you perfectly sync the audio with the length of the hallway, or is it just that glorified timed cutscene? I'm not sure what you mean. Are you so you're talking about like the dialogue and the music and stuff?
Back to it, I suppose.
Dang it. Yeah. Well, C105, from a layout standpoint, I think is the best level, and generally speaking, people seem to think the same thing. This level has, in my opinion, the best encounters. I love all of the fights in this level. I'm very proud of how this level's fights are structured, because they're all so interesting and fun, in my opinion. Like, I love this first fight when you get out of the elevator, and yeah, it is meant to be very much something that takes you off your guard. Like, we throw you right into it. And that was something we were actually debating doing whilst we were working on this level. It was like, do we really want to push players right out into the fray? And it is meant to be somewhat trollish in nature, a little bit mean. But like, we wouldn't do that kind of thing if we didn't think players could get through it, and I have actually seen a lot of people beat that on their first go. I've watched some streamers who've managed to get through that section just fine. So I don't feel like it's unfair for us. Like, generally speaking, I love moments where games try to catch you off your guard. And, like, generally speaking, if you have the skills necessary to overcome it and you don't panic, you can get through sections like this just fine. Let's see. Can't wake up. Yeah, sort of. So the entirety of that dialogue chain is just one audio file. So, like, all that stuff is timed out in and of itself. It's basically just once you get to that end portal, there's just a timer that starts. And it ticks down until... it's basically all in sync with the events. It's not that hard to... it's completely audio. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so... I'm getting too old for these types of shoes. Yeah, it is also worth noting, actually. We do have assist options, and in here you can press hold the bunny hop if you find it exhausting and constantly tap the space bar. And again, the way the game is balanced is like, on the 4th difficulty, you have to use the tools we give you to their fullest in order to get through the game and get through the sections we throw at you. But like the easier difficulties are balanced in such a way where you don't have to bunny hop. If you you still have to be smart with how you move, but like, you know, if that's something you don't like doing or something you have a hard time doing, you know, the easier difficulties are there for you. But generally speaking, when we put these mechanics in there, we expect, like, when you put an easily abusable and very spammable ability in the player's hands, you have to balance the game around the expectation that players are going to use that thing. Dusk. But, like, you can't, you need to, yeah, you need to balance the game around the expectations that players are going to use the abilities that you give them. And especially, and in a lot of cases, you should balance your game to encourage players to use the abilities that you give them. The canonical difficulty, I would say it's about 4. I don't think Carolyn is invincible. She's definitely very powerful. But a lot of that, but like, I would say a lot of her getting through combat encounters and stuff in like canon is more so her just avoiding being hit. Like, Carolyn is not invincible. It's just she's that fast and she's that good. Woo. Come on, baby girl. Yeah, so like I was saying before, drones are a bit of a support unit. On their own, they're not much of a threat, but they're meant to be a problem when you can't focus on them. Which is like one of the reasons why the last encounter of this level is like, last encounter of this level is almost entirely meant to be a use case, or like to introduce you to the value of the plague rifle. By creating a situation where it's difficult to focus on the drone and it's very difficult to avoid the drone. So you end up using the pung cannon to create openings for yourself. Not the pung cannon, the plague rifle. Blech. Yeah, I love this encounter right here. Dodging between the trains and having to like snipe the enemies. It's it has a pacing wise, it's very different from what we've been throwing at you so far. It's it breaks things up nicely. I guess is the best way I can put it. Up. I wanted to take her out. Let's see. No, we will not. I hate the game journalist meme. It needs to die. It's not funny. And I don't like adding like meme difficulties anyways. Okay. Is bee hopping more like Quake or Dusk? No. It's kind of a blend of a lot of things. And I should actually probably go into that so people have a better understanding of how the bunny hopping works. So in Dusk, it's completely bunny hopping is something that is completely artificial. Basically, in Dusk, when you bunny hop, a flat value is added to your speed that constantly makes you go faster. And the second you let go of a movement key, you stop dead in your tracks. What this means is you have 100% air control, but there is no actual momentum in Dusk. You're never actually like picking up momentum or anything. Again, it's just a flat value being added to your movement. Just making you go faster the more you jump. In Viscerafest, we sort of have a split system where it's like half momentum based and half faked momentum. So like if I jump here, you'll see like my momentum carries me, right? So like I'm not holding W down right now. And what this allows me to do is not only can my momentum carry me and like, you know, when I jump, I move forward a bit because my momentum and my gravity is pulling me in that direction, but I can also do stuff like this. I can rotate independently of where I'm jumping to. And you can't do stuff like that in Dusk. The other thing, too, is that dashing also builds into your momentum. So you can use it to get up to speed faster. And same thing goes with punching, but to a lesser extent. Yeah, so I would say it's kind of like, in a way, basically what we were going for was a movement system that felt like a blend between Dusk, Blood, and Unreal Tournament's movement. Let's see. Zip into this guy. Woo. Alright. Ooh, actually, before I forget, so in this level is probably the most difficult secret to find in the game. Because it's kind of a two-stage secret. So basically, on this train track here, there's a track that is slightly ajar. Stepping on it opens up a secret in this area over here, which has a pin key in it. And then the pin key door is in the final battle arena of this level. Yeah. But this section up here also introduces another fight that I absolutely love, which is the Thunderbird Hell Room. Oh, wrong way. Pop. Pop. Come on. Pop. Pop. Bop. Bop. And there we go. But yeah, I love this fight. I love this fight because, structurally speaking, it's a great example or use case for like the way the drones are kind of meant to be used. Because the Thunderbirds, because they're a harassing unit, they are fantastic. They work as a fantastic distraction to create openings for the drones. But at the same time, because of the sheer volume of them, and the way that the Thunderbirds and the dashing and the melee works, they're just, you can just, it's so satisfying to just go, woo! Woo! Dang it. Ah, damn. Whoops. I probably should have saved. I'm gonna die. Yeah, I called it. This level also probably has the most complicated systems as far as like how we handle the music goes. There's a little bit of dynamic music introduced in C105, but this level is generally like where I would say the dynamic music system gets used the most. Because most of the levels, it's mostly just like a looping track. But in this level, it's like this first fight has music tied to it, and there's like a bunch of different parameters that kind of dictate when and why the music will stop. And then again, the fight music kicks in later, and then it swaps to a different song for the boss fight. Yeah, it's a lot of chickens, but they're really satisfying to rip through. Like, a big reason why we throw that many at you is because we know, like, with the melee attack, they're pretty trivial. And it's important that, again, like, the entirety of that fight hinges on the chickens or the Thunderbirds distracting you from the drones. Because once the drone, because, like, you know, again, the idea is that the drones are a support unit. They need to have something that distracts you from them, and the Thunderbirds act as a great distraction because they're great for pushing the player around. They're great for just making sure the player's constantly moving around, and and as a result, they create openings for the drones, where they have a chance to pop off shots at you, and that can potentially be fatal. So the drones do the radio quiz special, and I don't know what that means. What is the radio quiz special? Ooh, oh crap. Let's see. No. Yeah, also in a recent update, we made it so that the drones drop armored pickups. Punch a drone to death. No, I don't do that. It is easy to do, but it's just not how I choose to deal with that section. But yeah, so also a few people have asked about the arsenal. So the game's arsenal is going to have a total of, what is it? 9 weapons. There's 6 currently available in the early access. And we have 3 more coming, 2 of which will be in Chapter 2, and 1 of which will be introduced at the beginning of Chapter 3. Did what blow itself up? Oh, damn. I'm done. Alright, so I am going to save here now. So I probably should have done before, but... Come on, babies. Woo! Alright. Oh, one more birdie. Woo! No! You stinker. Ooh. And we're going to have... The levels go by an individual level clock or a universal clock for things like this maze. I think just an individual level clock. I could be wrong. That would be something you'd need to ask Elijah. Hey, it's another save point we need to hit. Let's solve puzzles. Well, there will be plenty of puzzles going forward. No! Come on, baby. Boom. Alright. Woo! First try. Oh! Oh, it's so close. Oh, dang it. Yeah, I love this fight. Oh, God. Oh, no. Whoa, baby. Boom. Okay, so now... So anyways, we have the pink key door secret. And look who it is! It's the Drifter. Ooh. We won't kill him. Yeah, so that's just telling us that the boss has an autosave feature. And this was a nightmare, this boss fight. This fight, oh my god. Oh my god, this fight was such a pain to work on in every respect, whether it be balancing, just the structure, all of it was so painful. Ooh, baby. Oh, baby. Sorry, just gotta focus. Oh dear. Oh gosh. Come on. Oh, it was so close. Ooh. Ooh. All right. Ooh. Okay. Can't wait to see Herb Messiah do his redux of the melee only for this fight. Oh jeez. Come on, baby. Ah, dang it, I whiffed that. I whiffed it! I'm getting more and more sloppy. Oh, yeah, I'm getting too sloppy. I need to... To be honest, this fight isn't that hard. I'm just... I can usually do it in like one go. But... I'm just... Like I said... I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I've been talking my butt off. And my brain is numb. And the other problem is I'm pushing my mouse too far to the edge of my desk, which I really shouldn't be doing. Woo! start stocking up. Whew. Oh, dang it! Alright. Come on, baby girl. That is cool. Dang it, I shouldn't have done that. I wasted my quad. The other problem is that lava is significantly more dangerous now than it used to be. So I can't putz around in the lower regions as much as I once could. Oh dear. Come on. Popper? Yeah. I knew that was gonna get me. I flubbed it. I wasn't paying attention. Whoa. Oh gosh. Boom. There we go. I swear the shredders feel like their firing rate is slower now. I'm not sure why. Whoa, okay, I forgot. I putzed that one up. Oh yeah. Boom. Ooh. Alright. That wasn't pain. What are you talking about? A few deaths is not pain. Woo! And there we go. Oh. Anyway, the first version of this arena was mostly... Yeah. This, in the Blender version, this fight was, the color palette of the level is more pink and blue. It's Mr. Gianni.
Who are you? Just a man with mutual interests. Is that so? I understand your hesitative state, but we haven't much time. If the ritual is not performed by tomorrow,
He's the big man. I would say, well, for starters, I feel like it's worth noting. So, Leon Castor, for your question, yeah, I knew you. So there isn't actually a countdown there. There is no timer. You can putz around there for as long as you want. And the reason we did that is because I didn't want to screw people over who went through that boss only for them to end up like dying because they didn't get to the timer to get through that section fast enough. Because I feel like that would be like a little too mean. But yeah. So that will be it for the most part. I'm going to stick around because I want to answer any questions any peoples might have. So if you got anything you want to ask me before we finish up for the night, I'll be happy to answer them for you. I mentioned earlier there will be unlockable bonus levels coming post-launch. And this section right here is where the bonus level for Chapter 1 is going to appear. Basically, you'll once you unlock it, this will like rise up and lock in place. And you'll be able to access the bonus level. So yeah, so if anybody's got any questions, again, I'll be happy to answer them. Just break everything. Yeah. Oh yeah, that one's already broken. Oh. Wait, hold on. Was that? Was that mean I wasn't paying enough attention. I was looking at the chat. I want to make sure I didn't accidentally trigger that by just standing on the edge here. But I actually stepped in the acid. Yeah, it looks like I was just being a dummy. Favorite weapon ever? In Viscerafest or just like in any game period? Is there a way to send you money to help with development? No. I mean, you could buy more copies of the game if you wanted. If you have friends who don't, who have not bought Viscerafest, you can always gift the game to them or whatever. That might help. But for the most part, we are being funded by our publisher. They are paying us for the work we are doing. So that is where most of our financial compensation is coming from. The worst you could do, I guess, if you really wanted to, is to send us money over PayPal. But like, I'm obviously not gonna advocate that anybody do that. The way you can support us is by buying the game. Favorite weapon in Viscerafest, I can't talk about yet because we haven't revealed it. And it's actually a weapon we probably won't reveal. We'll wait until you guys get to pick it up in Chapter 2. Because I don't know that I want to show that one off, because that's the one that nobody has ever heard about or seen. My favorite weapon in any video game is the grenade launcher from Shadow Warrior. Let's see. Let's see. Any other questions? I'm just checking some stuff on the back end here quick. It's probably my most viewed stream, funny enough. I don't think we've gotten 21 people in here before. Is there any weapon you scrapped? Oh god, there's so many weapons that got scrapped. So originally, okay, so I'm trying to think about these in order. So like I mentioned, originally you were going to be able to dual wield the pistols. That changed, and that became the shredders. The shotgun went through a lot of different revisions. It used to be a single barrel, and it obviously more recently had become a double barrel. The pung cannon, like I mentioned earlier in the stream, it used to function entirely differently. It was more like a grenade launcher without an explosion, so you had to get direct hits with it. It was interesting, but like it eventually got swapped to the current functionality. Quad shotgun sprite is really the only thing that's changed about it. The plague rifle used to function entirely differently, like I mentioned earlier. The way it worked is that if you hit an enemy a few times with it would drain their health until they died. After that, there used to be a chain gun. So there used to be like a minigun you could get. After that, there was a buzzsaw gun, which would fire just saws that would pass through enemies and stuff and cut into them or whatever. There was a rail gun at one point that was called the lightning rifle. There was a lightning gun style weapon called the cauterizer, which got cut. What else? Oh god. There used to be a BFG tier weapon. I forget what it was called. I think it was called like the Devourer of Souls or something like that. But basically, if you hit like the environment, it wouldn't do anything. But if you hit an enemy, like a big creature would like burst from the enemy, jibbing it, and then like it would jib all the enemies around it. Anything else that got cut? There was tons of weapons that got cut. Ooh, I'm trying to think. Yeah, there was like I said, there was a lot of stuff that didn't make the cut. A lot of stuff that was changed over time. Ooh, there was a freeze thrower at one point, and that got cut because it was a piece of crap. Like, to be honest, I probably could have reworked it so that it felt better, but it was mostly just like, yeah, it just wasn't the most interesting or fun thing to use in the world. There were a bunch of different grenade types that got cut. So yeah, so like I said, tons and tons of weapons that got cut. Let's see. Anything else? I would talk about that final cutscene, but I don't feel like there's too much that I could add to it that I haven't already. Like I said, Chromune's in another dimension, or another realm, I should say, and his place got destroyed in the lake, and and then some kind lad came and picked him up, which you'll get to find out more about in maybe Chapter 2? I'm debating. It might be something that gets saved for Chapter 3. But I can't talk too much about him yet. You will get to see more of him, though, in Chapter 2. I can guarantee that. Any future things you haven't talked about but want to spoil that you haven't yet? Ooh, So one fun thing we'll be doing with levels going forward, or we're trying to do, I should say, is there will be more like alternate routes and stuff like that. So like there will be like a secret passage or something that you can find that effectively unlocks a large chunk of the map that you wouldn't see if you didn't go secret hunting. So like lots of stuff where it's like, oh, there's like this entire route that cuts through, and it's basically just like an alternate path you can take through the level, or just like an entire like series of combat areas you wouldn't see if you didn't go after secrets and stuff like that. There'll be stuff. There's a fair few things like that we'll be doing in Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. There's some more puzzle mechanics that I don't think have been introduced yet. I could be wrong. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure there's some more puzzle stuff that we haven't gotten to yet that will be introduced later on. Let's see. Anything else? I know I've said this a lot, but Chapter 2 is set in Japan. So there will be more outdoorsy locations. Chapter 2 is going to be a bit more open than Chapter 1 is. And obviously much more lush. With some more interesting locations. There's a lot more visual variety that's going to be going into Chapter 2. And Chapter 3 by extension. But yeah, I don't know that there's too much more than that I haven't talked about that I want to reveal yet. There's some, like I said, there's some enemy types we're working on, but I don't want to show those off too much yet. That's stuff I want to save closer to the actual release date of Chapter 2. Like I said, the Watchers will definitely be coming back, and I'm debating whether or not we want to implement them in combat situations. We'll see. There will definitely have to be some concessions made if we're going to introduce them into combat sequences. I don't think we will, though. So yeah, anything else? I can't say quick. So there's a lot of stuff. The options menu is not final. There's a lot of stuff that's coming in the options menu that isn't here right now. Like we want to add colorblind settings. We want to add controller support, some audio stuff, some more graphic settings potentially. A lot of that stuff isn't there right now because it's relatively low on our priority list. And that's stuff that's going to be very time consuming to add. But we definitely do. We're definitely going to be expanding what you're going to be able to fiddle with in the options menu. Like another thing we want to add is some HUD customizability. So yeah. Yeah, I think that will be all for the night, or day, or whatever happens to be in your time zone. For me, it is 4 p.m., and I'm getting hungry, so I'm probably going to eat dinner soon. So, with that said, I hope you guys all enjoyed. It'll probably be a long while before I stream again. I don't like to stream too often, just because, generally speaking, we have our Discord. I like to hang out there a lot. We'll typically pop in to voice chat almost daily nowadays. So if you ever want to talk with me, hang out with me, or have any questions you want to ask, you can ask them on the Discord. Again, our voice chat's open all the time. So if you want to come out and hang with not just me, but a bunch of other regulars who are there, we have a lot of fun. And yeah. Yeah, you guys all have a wonderful day. And I will see you when I see you.